Welcome back. You're watching Sokoni. This is the tail end of the program right now. The Kenya Revenue Authority has increased the market interest rates on fringe benefits to 15% for the next 3 months, reflecting the impact of rising interest rates, which will see employers pay higher taxes. Fringe benefits constitute soft loans that employers give to their workers at zero or below market rates as part of their remuneration packages. The difference in the rate charged by the employer and the market rate determined periodically by KRA represents the taxable value, which is then taxed at the corporate income tax rate of 30%. Employers facing higher tax bills on the benefit may respond by raising the rates on the cheap loans, diluting the benefits. The latest review by KRA marks an increase from market rate of 13%, which was applicable for October, November and December 2023. It is the third successive increase in the market interest rates. The latest rate will be enforced in January, February and March. The new rate is a significant jump from the 9% which was in place during the same period last year, underlining the steep increase in market lending rates. Right, we want to focus also on what is happening with the Airbnb, with the registration there, where all Airbnb investors in Nairobi and soon across the country will be required to register a business, then present relevant documentation to the Tourism Regulatory Authority, that is TRA, including a lease agreement where the landlord expressly agreed to a term a rental business have the unit and amenities inspected for safety before a license to operate is issued. These revelations follow discussions in a meeting recently held between short-term rental sector investors in Nairobi and a vacation Cribs Association of Kenya, that is KAVAK, a voluntary umbrella body, and of course the Director General of TRA, that is Norbert Talam. And it says in a new draft legislation will be out soon and will be subject to public participation before being formally adopted. That is what Noah Amoke, the chairperson of KAVAK, said as well. And lastly, we want to look at what will be happening with the transition of NHIF to SHIF, where there's a cloud of 16 billion shillings debt, which is haunting the National Health Insurance Fund before it is entirely disbanded ahead of the transition to the new Social Health Insurance Fund that should start on a clean slate. The amount includes pending bills and unpaid claims from various health facilities certified to offer services under the 57-year-old NHIF hospitals have in recent past seen turning away patients under NHIF covers to protest non-payment of premiums, while several government agencies are migrating their medical insurance services to private firms. Data shared with the National Treasury suggest the 16 billion shillings debt is the next thorny issue during the transition period, despite the exchequer owing the national insurer a total of 32 billion shillings. The dues to NHIF are mainly linked to undisbursed exchequer funding and unremitted statutory deductions for public servants. Social Health Authority, that is the new entity replacing NHIF, risks inheriting the debts should NHIF fail to settle them. Right, we want to just discuss a lot of decisions that we put on air right now. Let's just begin from this SHIF, because I think that is also of public interest. We'll go to the fringe benefits much later. And you're talking about the going concern. So there's a going concern here with NHIF, and this has drawn a lot of public interest, Bunyasi Safwa, because even people are having bugbears and fears that yes, these particular deductions will begin this month. The ministry was really under the gun to make sure they put proper structure. But we have 16 billion shillings, a lot of money, as we know. The tabulations has been put there. You know how much will be deducted when it comes into force. Your reaction?
Okay, first of all, the health insurance is one of the most important products that every household should have. It can lead to catastrophe when you don't have it. So you buy it, but at the same time, you buy it with an element of trust in it, that those who do manage the resources will do so in a way that optimizes the benefits for the members, for the insurables and so on, the insured and so on, that kind of thing. That hasn't always been the case. And in this transition, we talked about communication. this transitioning from NHIF to the universal health care, I don't know what the new name is exactly, or the new fund.
SHIF,
yeah.
Social Health Insurance Fund.
Social Health Insurance Fund. That transitioning has also not been sufficiently clarified. People have focused a lot on likely increases in their contributions. Pocket issues, of course, are very important, and the consumers are right to do that. But the state has to explain why the change overall is still better for household. That hasn't quite happened. It's intolerable that institutions will collect money to pass on to the fund and keep it. Workers have surrendered it. Employers have not remitted the money. That should be dealt with very, very brutally and very, very aggressively. It's not as if the workers, or rather the members, did not pay. They did, and then the monies are not. Very sad indeed. So I do hope that that's a debt that must be squeezed out of the institutions that have not done the remittances. And I would hope that the new fund is also fair. We have people who have benefited from NHIF getting millions of shillings paid for illnesses of their loved ones, and others who can only get bed cost. So if I'm in my local hospital in Mumias or something, all I can get is about 3,000. I don't know if it's that much, or 4,000 for bed, refund for bed, but nothing goes towards the medical treatment, or barely anything, whereas others have even succeeded to get their loved ones go overseas for attention. So I hope that the rules will be transparent, they will be fair. And we had this sad case of a guy who used to sometimes commute to his office by chopper. He was a receptionist or something like that at NHIF. I mean, the guy has made his personal decisions and likes to travel differently. But you can't avoid thinking that maybe financial control there is not entirely in order. I hope for the best under the new arrangements.
Right. Professor.
I think the first question should be asked, what's the difference between NHIF and SHIF, as you put it, social health insurance? Is it just acronyms, or is something more encompassing? Because I don't think the name was randomly chosen. So I hope that because it is social health insurance fund, it goes just beyond medical, but also takes care of your social life. Now, let me write on what my colleague has said about National Health Insurance Fund, because I think last year I was a victim of that. I took a relative to KNH for some medical treatment, and she had an NHIF card. Now, when the bill came, I was told we shall only pay for bed. And that was a bit interesting to me, because I thought medical services, treatment, pharmacies, and so on, and consultation are more important than the bed. So I hope the new SHIF, or whatever it is called, is going to be more encompassing, to look at what matters to a patient, not the bed, but the treatment. And I think number two, which is a bit of concern, if you go back to the photo, the video you showed there about the people waiting to pay for NHIF, they looked very elderly people. They were wearing masks, but they look very elderly. So I'm hoping that what the equality is talking about will take place, so that if my mom, who is 80-something, pays to NHIF, and somebody who is 25 pays to NHIF, they all can get, not HIF, but SHIF. They all can get what they want. And they should not discriminate whether you are poor or rich. They should not discriminate whether you are rural or urban. I hope that's a social part of SHIF. But more important is, we have been having a problem with people paying into these funds, whether it is NHIF or SHIF. And it is simple. If people can see the benefits of paying into that insurance fund, you don't even call them. They'll come and pay. So if there's transparency again, which seems to have been the theme of this discussion today, if there's transparency, then we expect more people to come. And if more people pay into that, economies of scale come in. So it'll be cheaper for all of us. And finally, this issue of the debt of NHIF being inherited by SHIF is a major concern to me. Because I see that even in the counties. When one governor leaves, another one comes. When one government comes, another government comes. There's always some issue of market debts, market funds that you cannot talk about. So I hope this debt of NHIF will not drag SHIF once it is inherited. So we need complete information about who is owed that money, when was it incurred, and how it is expected to be paid. So that I don't expect my NHIF to go up or my SHIF to go up so that I can pay for debt.
All right, so we have the president targeting 133 billion shillings annually from the new health insurance plan, and 77 billion shillings that is expected from salaried workers. With the economy also really tanking, and most of organization issuing profit warnings, that also jobs are on the line as well. What will be the sustainability of it? We can begin also from the going concern of 16 billion shillings, first of all.
Yeah, I think for me, I've read through the plan the government has with the Social Health Insurance Fund, and I also, like Commissioner Bunyasi, wish the government well, and I think it's a very noble idea. The intentions are good. One of the cornerstones of any civilization is its social safeguards and the safety net that the country will provide to the vulnerable population. And for me, I think the two most important and fundamental things that need to be addressed are regulation and governance. If it is a well-regulated fund, this is a cash cow, and regulation is critical. I mean, if it has to be regulated very well. For example, we at the NSE are regulated by the Capital Markets Authority, who have oversight over all the activities that we do. Similarly, they have oversight over all the other actors in the capital market ecosystem. And then number two is governance. How the funds are governed, the function of the board. It needs to be devoid of political interference. It needs to operate at the highest level of corporate governance. It needs to observe the King Code to make sure that everybody who is serving in that board is above board, is a person of high integrity, and it are people who are able to safeguard the interests of the wider population, because the 133 billion is not there for rent seeking. It is there to provide health insurance to the vulnerable population of this country. So I think, to me, the cornerstone of this would be regulation, and number two, governance.
Regulation and governance.
Debal, for me, it allow me to begin, of course, by complimenting government for having waited for the courts to rule on this matter to move forward. I think, as has been abundantly said elsewhere, that's the right way to go. If government is not in agreement with a court decision, you take it to a higher court, you appeal it further until it's ruled otherwise. I'm hoping that even those who went, the complainants who went to court in the initial stage, are also not giving up. They may still have, I believe they still have the right to appeal to the highest court on the land if they are dissatisfied. So that aspect of having waited for the courts to speak, to deliver a decision on this before its action is commendable. Secondly, the aspect of affordable health care is something that cannot be taken for granted. I'm glad at the WHO level, I would want to believe the UN level, the focus seems to have moved from UHC, universal health coverage, to PHC, primary health care. I think the aspect of emphasis on primary health care is key, and it comes along particularly with prevention. Let's do as much as we can to give people what one may call alternative medicine without taking actually drugs, that people are healthy. And health, of course, goes beyond physical disease. It includes also mental as well. Thirdly, for me, and this is something that we discussed last week, we had a meeting within the context of the Diaspora Health Task Team, where President of Kenya Medical Association and other professional bodies in the health sector participate. One of the key things that came out is the issue of ethics and professionalism. Because there was the issue of, one goes to a hospital, you either misdiagnosed, or somebody decides you need a surgical operation, even when that's not desirable, just because somebody wants to make money. I think the issue of ethics and professionalism is key in this regard. I remember Debal, I think a few years ago, former UK Prime Minister and the former Kenyan President signed an agreement to promote, for example, work that has been going on at Kenyatta University Teaching and Training Hospital and others. The idea was, how do we ensure that, one, we reduce the amount of money we spend to send out patients to other countries. How do we encourage, how do we promote Kenya to be a health tourism destination? I think that goal was noble. That still needs to be encouraged. Improving the health condition would be key, but we can only do that particularly if we are cost efficient in terms of delivery of health services. Again, I fully agree, it boils down to ethics, to governance, to transparency, and to automation. Technology has a whole lot of stuff to do in this regard.
Mm-hmm. Right, greatly put there. So you have...
I just want to add something about... my colleague talked about regulation. And one of the things I'm curious about SHIF is, remember, health function is devolved. So how is the national government, which is collecting that money, and the local government, and the faith-based organization, the private sector who provides self-services, how are they playing into this? That's why I'm very glad to see the regulation that is governing SHIF. Because there are too many stakeholders, too many players, too many vested interests, and those must be balanced.
Mm-hmm. And even they were on a madly tearing rush to make sure that this starts this month. The management of a public expectation has been a question I've been also posing to some of our guests here, because there's a heightened expectation that once you deduct this eye-popping figure from a payslip, I want, commiserate service immediately. So are there proper infrastructure, medical, facilities that will be, also worthy what I'm actually paying or giving or being deducted to the SHIF? How is also the ministry preparing to manage public expectation? Because once we begin this month as they wanted, then next month but next day when I go to the hospital, I don't want to be told that there's no medicine.
Yeah, a quick comment on that from my side. First, that's going to be a permanent feature. Complaints about inadequacy of services. We know it.
Permanent feature?
A permanent feature. All across
permanent feature from 200 shillings at maybe 30,000 shillings that you pay a month now.
Notwithstanding all of that, complaints about inadequate services, the British National Health Services system has been under immense pressure, but it's still admired in other quarters. Over time, it's so sober. In the US, most of the insurance is the private hands, but there is a component of it that is in the public domain, and that bit that's in public domain, serving Medicare, Medicaid, they call them, it's always subject to continuous pressure. It's not delivering the quality, it's not delivering the span of services, and so on. Only a few countries around the world, I'm told, have got more than where the private insurers are not so dominant that they really have done well in that space. So I think the fact that you have variable contributions from as low as the lowest is what, 200 or more, and the high one is quite high, means there's cross-subsidization of these services. So there will always be those who feel it could be more, could be less. But irrespective of the insurance arrangements, let us agree that there is a basic failure in the provision of curative, particularly medical care, in our public facilities across the country. The absence of, say, the most important drugs like malaria drugs, for example, not being there, and that's malaria is quite harsh on children and the elderly and others. In general, the retrovirals very essential for the containment of HIV and things like that. Those kinds of things should not be available, because if they are, there is a resurgence of problems and so on.
Right.
Those are the real problem, and I know it from many counties, including my own, just how badly that sector is managed.
Thank you. Right.
Really, really.
Right. I know, Chairman, you're just about to go, so I'll be remiss if I don't give you a chance also to talk about the regulations around Airbnb in light of what has been happening in this country with the femicide. Even yesterday, we've just seen another woman has actually been discovered in a thicket, and one of her breasts chopped off. This just macabre, morbid killings that is going on right now. And the government also is trying to come in and try and put proper structures as well. So these pronouncements that the Tourism Revenue Authority is trying to put in place, is it coming way too late in the day?
First of all, I think it's very unfortunate and that the girl child, young lady seemed to be bearing the brunt of, some extreme, seemingly social problem that is taking place in the country. And I think this could also be a manifestation of the economic despair that many people are facing. That you've seen recently the statistics on mental health situation in the country. A lot of people are having mental health challenges because of the sheer pressure, joblessness, lack of an income, and etc. Families are, they said over 50% of people are struggling to get by, as per the latest research that we saw the other day from TIFA. And, the fact that it is leading to, these homicide cases that we are seeing lately requires, of course, that there be tighter regulation and there be tighter control of these establishments that are housing these people. And I think it's a very good thing that the government is stepping in to try and monitor. And having said that, I also want to say that the one thing that technology has done also is that it has enhanced the investigative capacity. I mean, in the sense that there is always a footprint that leads. You see, if you find the mobile phone, for example, of the victim, it is very easy to draw a correlation or to even know the parties who may have been perpetrating that. It's normally not a one-off. So I think we also need to see the investigative agencies to be given as much control, as much support to be able to get to the bottom of these cases. But it's really unfortunate that these things are happening. It needs to be condemned. And I think, we need to be also back to patriotism. I mean, if you go to Ethiopia, for example, it's one country that impresses me a lot in terms of the vigilance of the general population. I think we need to also see community policing at the lowest level. We need people to be able to point out when there are new parties that come into a neighborhood. We need to know who they are. I think the Nyumba Kumi system used to somewhat address that, but it's quite difficult to have that in an urban environment like we have in Nairobi. But I think we really need to go back to that patriotic old system where you actually need to know who your neighbor is.
Right, the Nyumba Kumi initiative, as we knew it. So yes, I'll release you right now because I know you're also in a tearing rush to get into a meeting.
Let me still say that
you can give us your closing remarks.
Let me encourage that people invest in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Don't wait until the IPOs. Open your CDS account now and start to put your investment in. And thank you, Shem, for the work that the diaspora is doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Together we'll do more.
Yes.
We're working on something together with Nessie. We'll not disclose for now.
All right. Okay. All right. Shem, you can actually be weighing in on the latest A and B registration.
Debal, it's distressful to see our girls disappear, maybe tortured the way we are seeing. I think for me the bigger picture is what could be happening to body organs, because for somebody to go to that extent, because it doesn't seem just to be killing for the sake. It seems that there probably is a market somewhere for body parts that's so compelling that you'd lure a young girl and then make them selfless, but then also mutilate their selfless bodies, their lifeless bodies, to get some missing parts. So I think a deeper investigation needs to go into this matter. And technology, I fully agree, has a major role to play in terms of trying to trace what could have happened, some forensics into what could it be from a stage. I mean, who are the involved parties? What could the motive have been? I fully agree that economic times are hard. There are social issues. And in particular, in this case where it's some strangers persecuting or executing our girls, I think that's one aspect that the police, the security forces need to go much deeper into and let Kenyans know what could be happening here. Is there a market somewhere for these body organs that we need to crack? But then there is also the other side, homicide, or even just people. There's been cases almost every day. I listen to vernacular radio, somebody hung themselves, somebody found dead in the villages. What is it that could be happening? I think it's probably, has a correlation with the difficult economic situation. What is it that together as a country we can do to be the brothers and the sisters keeper, as it used to be in the past, so that whatever little that we have, we share. But obviously all this can only be and has to be spearheaded by government, both at the national and county level. Find a way, can we find a sustainable solution so that life does not become as meaningless as it seems to be today in the country?
Mm-hmm. Right. The Tourism Revenue Authority on this as well. We've had this not just with the recent upcoming of Airbnb, but even the stay homes. I think they started with the stay homes, where it's just the same arrangement that we're talking, but now we're using Airbnb as a blanket for that particular sort of arrangement as well. Since then, because I believe from around 2013, we've been talking about stay homes. There were conversations about stay homes. You're converting your apartment, you're converting your home to a stay home. Does this also fall within that particular bracket of the stay homes?
That's an interesting observation. But before we go to the stay homes, let's go back to this issue of femicide. Because my conviction is there could have been death even if there was no B&B. The way this death was carried out, it seems that a B&B was just a convenient place to carry out that killing. And I think we need to get deeper into why this is happening. Is it a ritual, as my colleague put it? Is it a part of a cult? Because a lot of people are blaming economic circumstances. But I don't think economic circumstances. We have always been a poor country. We have always had poor people in this country, but we have not gone to the extent of killing and sacrificing other people, whatever is happening. So we need to look at this issue from a multiple perspective, economic, sociology, psychology, religious perspective, that we get the whole picture. Because for somebody to go and kill somebody using a hacksaw, it's not normal, as I said earlier. And there seems to be an air of meaninglessness that is haunting the younger generation. They're looking for meaning. And unfortunately, they are getting it in the wrong place. So I'm also concerned from my own point of view that could this be a new form of terrorism? For you to kill a person the way the person was killed, it does not look normal. So it might not be religious, it might not be economic, but it might be a new form of terrorism, people terrorizing others. So the reaction by the government was, let's crank on, or let's have a crackdown on B&B. But I think that's just a part of the iceberg. It is bigger than that. So as we crack on A and B, let's look at the bigger picture. Why are people behaving the way they are behaving? Now you talked about stay at home.
Stay homes.
Homestays, yeah. Which I think is a very good tourism concept. Because if I'm an American or a European or a Swedish and I'm coming to visit Kenya, I'm not very interested in 5-star hotels. There could be better hotels in my place. I want to taste the authentic African scenery, and which better way than staying at home? I remember about 20 years ago, I was invited a stay home in the northern part of the US in Indiana, and I stayed among the Amish. These Americans don't like power in their house. They don't like cars, and they prefer to use horses. And to me, that was a very authentic experience. So we should not stop people enjoying our unique tourism just because of femicide. So let's look at the bigger picture and let's not overreact.
Briefly.
In fact, in a sense, Airbnb has provided some convenience because it is public space, it's monitored, it's kind of regulated. You can see who's going in and going out and so on, and in a few places there's CCTV. So I start first by commending our Kenyan police for being able to give hints on what might happen fairly quickly, which means they have a capacity which they sometimes don't seem to deploy in other cases, but they have done so in this particular case. Even if you abolished Airbnb, that would not eliminate the killing. So I do not see in the chain of causality that somebody talked about earlier, Airbnbs are not causes. They just maybe facilitate. They might facilitate, make it a bit easier. But as if it was in people's homes, it could still have happened. Probably will take a little more time. There have been cases in this country where bodies have been dumped into sewage places or water bodies, boreholes that open. We have had all kinds of, macabre, sort of happenings. I think a sociological explanation might also throw some light around rituals and strange religions, but it's also true that rare value is being placed on these organs. There are people prepared to pay lots of money, I'm told, in areas like the Middle East, for example. And so people will harvest these organs by whatever way they want to do. I think some tight crackdown on those kinds of markets, I think, should be important. And then lastly, I think government should go public and alert people, men and women, about the risk of online lure. You are lured online, and you end up in a place where nobody else seems to know because of the privacy that goes with it, and you end up with the problems that we had. I have never been on Instagram, but I'm told you can communicate on Instagram without exchanging your phone numbers or something like that. I don't even know really what its main products are. I've never been on it. But that's really dangerous. But we should encourage our young people, men and women, but mostly the girls, that what looks so good and very secretive is a dangerous thing. And maybe that public awareness, where at least you have two, three other people who know where you are going, and that if you don't hear from me by such a time, I'm in trouble, and let people follow through. That awareness should also come through. But I want to conclude by commending the police for beginning to crack down rapidly by following all leads, using science and technology that they have got. I thought that is really commendable. It doesn't bring back the dead, but I think it means that they'll perhaps be in control of these investigations and perhaps provide preventive measures later so that people can be a bit more cautious.
Right. Even as we're ending up, you wanted to say something?
I want to add that I'm a bit concerned when you have a crackdown on B&B, because Airbnb is like Uber. You have your car, instead of keeping the car idle, make use of it. If you have extra space in your house, make use of it. So from all points, from all perspectives, Airbnb, just like Uber, makes economic sense. And that's where the world is going. So we should not really kill that industry because of this episode. We just need to regulate it, have more transparency, and tourism will thrive.
Right. I think if you can see, the Airbnb is actually in quote unquote, because we've used that particular name as a brush, a broad brush stroke of everything that's maybe because of a lack of a better moniker, be it homestays or Airbnb. But this is coming later today. I wanted just to
as you leave that, about I think Airbnb is an innovation. I want just to challenge our innovators, be more creative, find even better solutions. For example, incorporate security aspects so that the Airbnbs are more secure. I think it's an opportunity. Whenever they say problems are the mother of innovation, we have a problem here. How do we incorporate automated digital security to what's happening to Airbnbs?
Indeed. I'll be remiss if we don't talk about something that I think will be in the public domain, and that is the petition that is in courts. Someone went in Nakuru. Now they're seeking that the church has to pay tax. We're just trying to, this has been an ongoing debate since Professor Githu Muigai, remember, when we were there. And this was what was headlining the front page of Taifa Leo: asukuma sadaka itozo ushuru. Daktari Kutini akisema kila Mkenya paswa kulipa ushuru bila kujali sekta anako hudumu. We had it also inside the Daily Nation there, just to look on top here. A petition why churches should pay taxes on tithe on page 3 of the publication yesterday. I wanted just to pick up on that. I think, do you think he has a point that everyone should, given now the times that we're living in, the economy is really tanking?
I think there are examples around the world where the tax authorities seek to differentiate what income may have gone to the church, for which the church does many good things, and which of it may have fallen in the pockets of those who are officials of the church. I think to give them a blanket exemption is probably too generous. And I think also to go in and think that they are the real culprits and just tax them to extinction is also not fair. But I think an attempt must be made. We have seen, people have said casually, that one of the best businesses to invest in is evangelization. It's preaching and something religious and so on. And in the cases of these Pentecostal preachers, for example, just an example, I don't want to target them in a specific way, where you can see movement from rags to riches right before your own eyes, something is not right. And when you see the shakaholas and things of that nature, there's need for regulation, clearly. Taxation will also throw light on how much money these people are really making. That is not really of a religious value, but it's of personal value. Of course, I have ideas about how to save souls, and because the idea is working, people are prepared to pay. I've been told about somebody here, this lands here, where when they collect the tithes on a Sunday, they have wheelbarrows and bags full of cash, literally. The donations are huge. 20,000 people attending church. Extremely important. I mean, it's big. It's better than a big corporation and that kind of thing. There's a church that's near Laneka, land perhaps more, and with outside tent. So clearly, it's something where people turn to. I think a careful consideration should be made. Components of that are incomes accruing to the individual, for which he can then fund his own family and do his own private things, run choppers and so on. I think that really must be taxed.
That must be. They saying this is discriminatory, the particular law that is exempting the church as it is. Cases alleged discrimination where a section of populations pay while other goes scot-free. They get a full salary.
This is an interesting debate, and probably look at it from through the lens of an economist. There's no question about it. Churches get income, and that income, in my opinion, should be taxed, because the same way I make money from the work that I do and I'm taxed is the same way other people make money, and they should be taxed. But I think I want to suggest a middle ground. So when I give the tithe, it should be tax exempt. So when I'm filing my taxes, I should say this was tithe, so that I pay less tax. I think that would be a middle ground. But I think from an economic point of view, there's a good reason for anybody making income to pay tax. It doesn't matter whether you're a civil servant, whether you're a businessman, or whether you are a church owner. At the end of the day, church is spiritual, but they also deal with money. So the fact that they deal with money is a very good reason for them to pay taxes. Because they are not purely spiritual, they also deal with money. So if they are able to get money for funding their services or whatever they do, what is wrong with them paying taxes? My observation is they should pay taxes, and they should even declare their income. I saw the other day somebody saying he spent 460 million in a medical procedure somewhere abroad. And I was left wondering how much money had that church made. I just calculated backwards. That was just for medical procedure. So if the church can contribute to the tax revenue, it would be good. After all, the church uses power, they use roads, they use all the services that we use in this country. It would be patriotic, it would be spiritual for them to support the services that are offered by the government.
Dr. Shemucholo, let me hear your sentiment as well. I know you're a church elder.
When I was younger, I was a church deacon. So I obviously hold a different...
We shall not ask you what happened.
I went into public life. When I was going to politics, I had to be released from the deaconry. But that said, Debal, I don't think we should generalize on faith. On when people talk of prosperity gospel. Not every church is an economic unit, so to speak. I think we must always consider for what purpose do certain things happen. I do know, on the one hand, that the Bible itself says give to Kaiser what's Kaiser's. So government taxes being paid is legitimate and supported and encouraged indeed by church. But I think we would be better off staying the lane of taxing things that are economic rather than that are social. To the extent that we are saying marriages, weddings and so on. We are going to tax social service. I think even in the NGO world, where people give charity work, humanitarian assistance, I think we would be taking this aspect of taxation too far. Kenyans, in my view, are already heavily overtaxed. I think we just need to look at how do we more prudently utilize the resources that we have, and how do we grow the cake bigger. Focus on ways of growing the cake rather than overtaxing people literally for everything. So personally, I don't support charging religious.
Right. But
can I add something?
You in Hamburg, and I know also in Germany, from your salary slip, some of there is a church tax. I think I don't know if it's a 10% that is deducted from your salary for just for the running affairs of the church in that particular jurisdiction. I wonder, do they also collect, offerings and tithes if, as an individual, and you can actually apply for exemption?
I found the church is very empty there, so I never attended any. But
they're very empty.
Yes,
in fact, that's what I wanted to ask. Are they still, deducting taxes on the payslip, and the churches? No one is actually going to these churches.
But I think some of them probably do that. They probably deduct tax from your income, and then the money goes to your tithe, and the money goes to church. But I think my argument was very simple. If a church can demonstrate that it is doing something good for the society, they are building schools, they are building hospitals, we can exempt them. But out of churches, we don't know where the money goes. So if the church can demonstrate, this is the money we collected as tithe, but this is what we are doing with it, and we can see the tangible benefits, I think they can be exempted.
Because solely, I think in Germany, that is purely for community service. The enrichment of the community that we can see. You're a church, there's social services around, water is there, schools. At least you're also aiding the government in running the affairs of the public at the end of the day.
We can even make it more dramatic. We say churches will be paying taxes, and then they seek for exemption, giving justifications.
Right.
There is there are ways in which you can modulate this in a way that you don't tax domains within the church earnings that are purely for promoting spiritual development and harmony. Churches play an important role in pacifying people's souls and bodies, as it were. When you go seek for blessings and you have a pastor, the pastor must survive, so they have to earn, and so on. So I think there are some useful roles, but there's also the issue of enrichment, not only within the church, but outside of churches. I am a Catholic, and I have a new parish that's now 200 meters from my home, to which I played, quite an active role alongside hundreds of others to make this happen. And the priests that we've got are doing a superb job. They really are working, looks like 22 hours a day, to do what they are doing for us in the church. If there was public participation, I'm sure the vote there would be that you can't tax the income of this group of people in this church. But that is just one example. And if I was going to give examples in each case, it might appear as if there is a certain pattern of where I should say tax. I don't want to go that direction. All I want to say is that there are also those who enrich themselves substantially from earnings from the church. In the old days, for those religious groups where the clergy are allowed to marry there for their families, you always found, first, they believed literally in the issue of not using any family planning. They tend to have large families, and they tend to be very well educated. They were able to fund them, and so after they had some income, they used it as a family. But that income was also considered taxable. So I think we should differentiate where the benefits, even to churches like the Catholics, if the priests get a steady allowance of any kind, that should be taxed. If it comes back to them to receive an allowance, that should be taxed. But some of the monies, and to know whether it should be or should not, you have to say how much you received and what you used it for. So there will be categories of exemption, but it can't be that we don't want even to know and you're not going to pay tax. Probably that's not a very good thing.
Right. All right. We should be giving up our headline thoughts. Let's begin with you, Dr. Shemuchwa.
Debal, maybe just a rejoinder on the taxation. It's indeed true there are churches in the West that are almost empty. I remember while at York about 30 or so years back, we had a congregation of about 6 people, and I and my family were like the only young people, so to speak. So that's true, but that's notwithstanding the BAL. While I may not support the idea of taxing people so that they support church, I think we should not overlook the role religious communities, not just churches, but Hinduism, Islam, and all they are playing in giving us, in stabilizing the society and trying to introduce value systems in our community. My closing thoughts, the roads that I use in Nairobi are in terrible state. And I think they're likely to get worse. Government needs to pay attention to maintaining the roads to standards that are acceptable. It, of course, raises the issues that we discussed last week.
So will you give me any meaningful specifics instead of generalities? Any road particular that you... Yeah?
Langata Road is bad. I think last week we talked about Valley Road. I think almost every road I'm using now in Nairobi, there are potholes. Even while we're coming over here to Mombasa Road, I know there is some construction work that's happening, but even the bypasses are dilapidated. Whether you're talking of Southern Bypass, Eastern Bypass, we need to do something about the roads.
The pothole that I mentioned last week on Valley Road was actually fixed.
It was fixed after.
Thank God. Thanks.
It was very dangerous. I was very happy it was fixed. And then I think my closing remarks are simple. This country has a lot of economic challenges. Whether you're looking at the depreciation Kenya sharing, more debts, IMF policies,